This is the installation video for the one-port motor monitor door alarm. Step number 1 is test the single port door alarm as you receive it in the post to prove that it does work and that you understand how it will work in your configuration. Here you can see that we have ordered 2 sensors for 2 doors plus an extension cable because we did not think that 3 meters would be long enough. 3 meters of cable for the first sensor would be long enough to reach to the door alarm. And so we've also procured a 2 meter extension cable. When we receive this, the first thing you can do is plug in the 12 volt cable and plug it into the cigarette socket of your vehicle and turn on the ignition. And when you enable the alarm, you'll see that it beeps and proves that the power is being supplied to your door alarm. The next step then is to install the 2 meter extension cable, ensuring that this key aligns with the key on your box. So I have to rotate that, it'll match up there now and plug in. Similarly with the first sensor, rotate that, align the two together, and then they will plug together. Now what we encourage you to do with each sensor is to actually tape the magnet to the sensor to ensure that this is demonstrating that the door is in the closed position. Take the extension or the daisy chain extension and connect now the next sensor, aligning the key correctly, and again tape the magnet to your sensor to simulate a closed door position. Now the final thing that you should do on the very end of the daisy chain of all the sensors, you may have as many as you want, but at the very end you must put in this loop back cable, because without that your door alarm will sound and will not function correctly. And now we can test this. We can now enable the single port door alarm, and you can see that it's enabled, but the alarm is not sounding because the door alarm is detecting that both doors are in the closed position, and also that the cable is not cut, because that is one of the features of the door alarm. What you can now do to understand or better understand the limitations on these sensors is you can remove the sensors and separate the magnet, and you can see the distance over which it works. Now in this case here we're on an aluminium backboard, and so that distance is quite high. Be aware that if you're mounting this in a steel or a ferrous setup, that distance will be somewhat reduced. So we'd encourage you to actually test in that space there if you want to understand what those limitations are. Similarly here, the second sensor, you can understand what the limitations are, how it works, and then put it back here. And then again, you can remove the loop back cable to simulate a cable cut scenario and prove that the alarm actually sounds. So that's the completion of step 1 for your single port door alarm. We now come to step 2 of the installation, where here we've roughly laid out the cabling to confirm that the lengths that we have are correct for this installation. In this scenario here we've got 3 doors. The first sensor will go here up high on this door to prevent impact damage from equipment going in and out of this door. The second sensor will go high up on this door here, and the key thing to remember is the magnet goes on the door and the actual cabled sensor goes onto the vehicle itself. And then that second sensor is then daisy chained to a sensor on the third door, which is on the top left there. The first sensor we've determined, or we want to confirm, is long enough to reach through the vehicle into the cab and able to install on the dashboard here on your vehicle. Once you've connected these sensors together in the daisy chain form here and are satisfied that your lengths are correct, you are then ready to move on to step 3 of the installation. We now come to the next step where we install the sensors and the cables. The first sensor can be installed inside the vehicle, where you should put a mark on the vehicle where it's going to go. We then suggest closing the door and putting a corresponding mark on the inside of the door for where you're going to fix the magnet. When you install the sensor, you can have the armoured cable going up, which ensures the cable is well out of the way of any potential damage from sliding equipment. Or if you're confident enough with the mat that's in your toolbox, you can have it going down, tucked in behind and running along the mat. Install the sensor initially with the VHB tape that we supply, and then for a longer term installation we suggest using the stainless steel screws and self-locking nuts. Some people also elect to mount their sensor using silicone for a more durable installation. The choice is yours. Once you've mounted the sensor, we then suggest using these self-adhesive mounts and cable ties to position the cable in the direction that you want it to go. Again, a suggestion of ours is once you have the cable laid out exactly how you want from one sensor to the next, you can then follow up using silicone to provide a longer term and more durable solution. That's the end of the step to install the sensors and the cables. Once you've installed your sensors and your cables into your canopy, you're now ready to run your cable or cables from the canopy through into the cab of your vehicle. With the 1-port door alarm, you'll just have the one sensor cable. If you've installed the 3-port door alarm, you may have 2 or even 3 cables if you're wanting to separately indicate up to 3 doors. Again, for the 7-port door alarm, you will just simply have the one cable which is able to indicate up to 7 different doors. Take your cable and select a suitable position on the front of your canopy where you can drill a hole and use one of the grommets that we've supplied with your kit. Preferably, if there's an existing grommet in place, we recommend that you use that. Once you've installed the cable through there, you may want to silicone it to improve the water resistance of the installation, and then you ideally want to run the cable through into an existing grommet that may be on the rear of your cab. So remove that grommet, run the cable through, and again you may elect to provide some silicone to improve the waterproofing of that seal. You're now ready to move on to the next step of your installation. You're now ready for the final step for your installation of the door alarm. Firstly, you've got to select a suitable location on your dashboard where you want this indicator for your door alarm to be. In this scenario here, we could place it on the dashboard here, or we could place it here. Now what we recommend initially is to use the VHB tape that we've supplied, which is a good adhesive, to mount the door alarm in the location that you desire. And once you're comfortable with that over a period of time, you could then make it a bit more of a permanent installation by using the 2 screws that we've supplied and affixing it to your dashboard using those. Now the cable itself you will have run ideally under the trim, and so if you were to install the door alarm just here, you'd have it coming out somewhere along your trim along there and then plugging into the bottom of your door alarm. If you were to install it here, you would have it coming out of your trim down lower. Make sure that the cable is well affixed, and if necessary, use some of the self-adhesive cable tie mounts and cable ties to finish your installation. Well, that ends the installation of your door alarm.